It's not even the just a little. Just if it gets hot.
And I know Rabbi doesn't love air conditioning on his
Yeah,
back.
leave the windows open. Do you guys want it on or?
I'm okay. I'm
perfectly fine.
I'm fine.
With or without?
You know what? Then if it gets really hot, we'll.
We're Jews. We passed through the desert
That's
for
right.
40 years. We could survive a little.
Yeah.
39 Devon.
Sickest too, right?
Okay, Erev Tov, good evening. Gemar Chatima Tova. So we say a good Bet Shiur. We should be blessed for a good year and a sweet year materially and spiritually, and of course spiritually and materially together in a revealed and seen manner. We should be able to accomplish everything that our souls descended into this world. We should be able to accomplish it with out of happiness and joy and gladness of the heart, and with as little resistance as possible.
Amen.
We're just about Erev Yom Kippur, and it's a very sensitive time. Right after Rosh Hashanah, we start a period called the 10 Days of Tshuva. And we spoke about this many, many times. The word Tshuva does not mean to repent. The word Tshuva means to reclaim, to return, to go back to who you were meant to be before your life took over, before you adjusted your perception, before we lost sight. Inasmuch as when we take a very long journey, it is possible to take the wrong turn from time to time. But when you take the wrong turn, it doesn't occur to you at any given point that that's it. You're stuck in the wrong junction for the rest of your life. When you take the wrong turn, you should be alarmed enough to say, I have to find the right way back to where I need to be. I lost enough time. I don't want to waste any more time because I need to get somewhere. There's somewhere I need to be. And if you've taken several wrong turns, then you should be even more alarmed, because how much time are we going to waste? So we're now the last of the 10 days of Tshuva. The 10 days of Tshuva, God allows us to really look into ourselves, into our lives, and ask ourselves, where am I? Where am I? Where am I in my life? Where am I in the process, my mission? Where am I in my relationships? Where am I in my goals, in my commitments? And if I'm not where I need to be yet, that's fine. There is a scenic route, and some of us must take the scenic route from time to time. Deliberate with our relationship. We are to be more deliberate with our connections, because time is scarce. Time is scarce. And because of that, we ought to value every moment, every second. I said this before. It is somewhat of a morbid mashal. It is somewhat of a morbid parable. But it's true. God forbid, if our souls were to descend out of this world, ascend from this world today, and we find ourselves all of a sudden outside of our body, and God came to us and tell us, you know what? I see you have some loose ends, some things you didn't finish. I'm going to restore you for 24 hours. I'm going to bring your soul back down for another period of time. What would you do with that? How would you respond to that? How would you respond to the people around you, to the events around you, to yourself? What would it look like? Every day is another day of life, and we ought to commit to life. Especially now that we're in a new year. And a new year is not that we're starting a blank slate. We're not starting over. We're acclimating ourselves. We're reclaiming ourselves. We're maneuvering ourselves to become the best we can be. The very famous story, saw this over once, from His name was Chonya Morozov. He's a very holy Jew. He was a previous Rebbe's secretary. He was killed by the KGB. We could bring weeks and weeks upon this one chassid. When he first got married, he went with his wife to a furniture store to pick out some new furniture. And when he went to the furniture store, with the meager earnings that he had, he told the salesman his budget, his very low budget. The salesman showed him to some, Formica pieces, some broken down pieces. And when he was looking around, he noticed that there's a stairway to go up to a second floor. So he asked the salesman, "What's over there?" And the salesman says, "Oh, over there, that's beyond you." He says, "No, I want to know what's up there." He says, "Over there, that's the floor for the machers. That's the floor for the big leagues. $5,000, 5,000 rubles, 2,000 rubles. Real wood, cherry, oak." He says, I would like to go up there and look at it." He said, "Okay," and he'll go around and it's beautiful furniture, mahogany and oak and a beautiful wood. And indeed, it was very, very costly, very expensive. But the salesman says, "You know what? This floor is divided into half. Half is this price, and there's another side of the same floor with the same exact furniture, but all the prices are cut in half. They're all cut in half. The price, if it's 5,000 on this side, it's going to be 25 over there." So he said, "I would like to look at it." And he comes to the second side and he looks at it. It's exact replicas of the furniture he just looked at. So he tells the salesman, "How come it's slashed in half?" He says, "You see, you're such a novice in furniture and in wood, you wouldn't understand. But if you look underneath over here, there's a little scratch. And over here, there's a little dent that occurred by moving. And that significantly reduced the price and the value, and therefore the price of this piece." So Chonya had an idea. What was the idea? "Bring me back downstairs to the first floor." Comes back to the first floor, and he says to the salesman, "Show me the other room for this furniture. The one that's $500, 500 rubles, 250 rubles, 100 rubles, 50 rubles. He says, no. Over here, there's only one side." He says, "Why?" He says, "Because with this lowly material, nobody cares if it's scratched or if it's broken. It's not valuable to begin with. So you're getting the base price. Over there, when there's a value, then every single scratch and everything is noticeable, and it has an effect on the value." Chonya understood a very great lesson from this. As the Baal Shem Tov says, from everything that we see and we hear, there is a lesson to be drawn for our personal lives. Wherever you go, whatever you hear, God is always playing a beautiful concert for you. The question is, are we paying attention? What's the lesson? Here we are, a year later. Technically, it should be a better us. It should be a better us. It should be a more valuable us. We're 1 year more experienced. What the Mishnah says? And a chacham, the true wise wisdom comes with experience. And here we are a year later. We should be more valuable, therefore. The scratches and the dents that were okay last year should not be looked upon as, what are they really doing in my life? The things that distracting me and might have been okay before. This is not who I am anymore. This is not what our relationship is all about. Maybe before we were able to tolerate and not be respectful, but now we're better than that. We should be better. And so the 10 days of tshuva is the day that we reclaim our true selves. Tshuva melashon tashuv. We come back. We need to come back to ourselves. We need to come back to the way things needed to be in the first place. Before we got. And of course, one of my most favorite mashalim before we begin tonight's class. One of my favorite mashalim, and I use this often. And those of you in my classes before know this mashal backwards and forwards. We spent literally almost 2 years just on this one parable.
New suit also?
Yeah. That's it. See, Tammy over here,
attention.
she'll tell you. There's some things that you just need to just juice to
keep
the very
coming
last
back.
drop.
You keep
Very
coming
last
back.
drop. And the mashal parables is of a groom who came to a tailor and asked him to sew him a beautiful suit for his marriage. And the tailor took the measurements, the arms and the legs and the chest and etc. A week before the wedding, the groom comes to collect the suit and he finds, he's so excited, he's so enthralled, a new suit, especially back then, comes to back home, puts it on, and it doesn't fit. Of course, he comes back all dejected to the tailor, says, with all due respect, Mr. Tailor, this can't be my suit. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit past my waist. It doesn't fit on my arms. It just doesn't fit. It's not my suit. So the tailor says to the groom, excuse me, with all due respect, I've never made a mistake. This is surely your suit. He says, well, I'll go try it. He says, go try it. He goes to the dressing room, puts it on, comes back out, and it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. So the groom says, you see, I told you it doesn't fit. What does the tailor says? Excuse me, Mr. Groom, what exactly is underneath the suit that you're wearing right now? He says, what do you mean? He says, well, you're wearing a new suit, but I'm seeing that you're wearing something underneath it. He says, what is it? He says, oh, that's my old suit. That's the suit I came in with. So the tailor tells him, how do you expect to fit into the new suit when you haven't taken off the old suit yet? If we're going to be able to experience real change, Shana, Rosh Hashanah, the head of change. Shana comes the word Shinui, change. Rosh, the head, the control center for change. We need to really start evaluating ourselves properly as to what scratches might have been okay before, what form of speech might have been okay before, what form of behavior, thought patterns, etc. might have been okay before, but now they're just taking away our value. And for what? For what? What are we gaining? Momentary satisfaction to know that we're right? Or to feel that we're right? That's it? What are we gaining from it? Having said this, tonight's class is about forgiveness. It's all about forgiveness.
Welcome, come on.
Hello.
Welcome, come on in.
Erev Tov, good evening.
Rabbi Usher, back for more. Hello. Hi, Shana Tova.
Shana
Hi,
Tova.
Shana Tova. David, nice meeting you. David, nice meeting you. Shana Tova.
Nice to meet
Hi, Shana Tova.
Shana, nice to meet
Nice to meet you.
you.
Jen.
Your home?
Yeah, this is my
Oh,
house. Yeah.
great.
Just
Thanks for
Hi,
having me.
guys.
Nothing.
What do you do? You we know all the time, but what are you doing here? What are you doing here?
Being taped.
Oh, let's see. Come. Oh.
We know that Yom Kippur is not a day of forgiveness. It's not Yom HaSlicha. It's Yom Kippur. Lechaper, to expunge, to remove. We've stained up our suits. We've become stained with our habits, with our false ambitions, with our false fantasies, with things that don't belong. And Yom Kippur, once a year, God allows us to make tshuva beforehand, and then He helps us root out the stain from the very fibers of our soul. Having said this, in order to accomplish this, there are steps. There's Elul, the preparation for Rosh Hashanah. There's Kabbalah Malchut, to receive upon yourself the kingdom of God. Now we have the 10 days of Tshuva. And as we know, the custom is, if we've hurt anyone, at any time, it's a time to seek forgiveness. Because when somebody holds a grudge against you, it has a very powerful effect.
Somebody against you?
Against you. Against you. Or
How
you
do we
against.
know somebody has a grudge against you?
This is why you have to inspect. We have to really think. We have to really consider. I'll tell you, just before we even get to the class, there was a couple that I was involved with years ago. They were married for several years and they couldn't have children. I brought them to the Ohel and they wrote a Pidyon Nefesh to the Rebbe. Then we opened the Rebbe's letters, and the Rebbe asked. He had this was letter.
This is when Rebbe was alive?
This is a few years ago. The Rebbe in the letter addressed a couple who couldn't have children and asked them, "Did you hurt anyone in the process of your engagement? Was anybody hurt? Did you hurt anybody?"
The rabbi was alive, right?
This is after we opened up his book of correspondence.
Letters that are up.
Igrot's Kodesh. It's about 30, 32, 36, 39 volumes, I think, of letters from the Rebbe that he wrote. And when we go to some people have the custom of opening up to see.
But he's dead.
This is beyond the scope of this class right now.
Well, he was alive. He was right.
He wrote this to someone, right?
Oh, okay.
Right.
Somebody asked that question.
And people
Right.
reference those letters to
Well,
help
I
them
understand, but my
with the
question
answers
was-
that they're looking for now.
And so
Kind of.
the Rebbe asked, "Did you hurt anyone in the process of your shidduch? And if you did, you should through a proxy, through a third person, seek forgiveness from this person."
Why through a third person?
Because the other person was married and it might have brought an awkwardness. So interestingly enough, she sent her brother to the person that was hurt, and a year later they give birth.
When you say hurt in what way hurt? Like,
It was
physically?
they had an outing, a really a very big outing.
So
I don't
this
want to get into
person-
the details.
So she knew that she hurt somebody.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. We'll get into it.
Okay.
So there's a very, very famous book. It's called The Sunflower by Simon Wiesenthal. You all know who he was? Simon Wiesenthal? You know who he is? Simon Wiesenthal. There's a center in California. He was a great Nazi hunter. He was a Holocaust survivor. He has several books. One of the books is called The Sunflower. And in this book, he writes a very interesting story. It's a real story. It said one night in 1944, he was taken out of his bunk in the middle of the night and brought to a makeshift hospital on the other side of town, on the other side of the village. And he was
in
said,
concentration camp?
yeah, it was a
Okay.
concentration camp. And he was told go in there. There's somebody who wants to speak to you. He was really baffled by the entire situation, but he walked in and he saw one of the senior commanders of the concentration camp laying there dying. And the guy tried to sit up and looked at Simon Wiesenthal and said, "I'm so glad to see you. I thought by now we definitely killed all of you. So I'm so happy to see you. And that's because I know that I'm dying and I don't want to leave this world knowing all the atrocities I committed. I would like you to forgive me. I'd like you to forgive me." Before we go on, would you forgive somebody like that?
No.
Would you forgive someone who consciously, purposefully did everything in their power to exterminate your people, your family.
But he was under pressure, probably. He did it to save his own life.
But still, the atrocities were committed. Still, he killed people. He hurt people.
Would you forgive?
No.
Would you forgive someone who blatantly destroyed everything in your life
No.
and on purpose?
That would be really, really.
Nobody would, right? Very few people would.
Actually, this book is debated. It was debated amongst philosophers, theologists, because at the
It all
end,
depends how religious you are. If you're
it
a
depends.
rabbi like you, maybe you understand Torah, you must let it go. But for us, that we don't enough mind.
This is true.
No.
Religious ones think even the bad ones in their life are meant to be, and it's because Hashem wanted to teach them something. So it's easier for them to forgive.
Is that true or not?
We'll discuss that in a few
Maybe,
minutes.
maybe it's a malak and you can't forgive him.
Can't
The what?
Maybe it's a malak and you can't forgive him.
So let's look at this. But Paul, in actuality, he turned right back around and he walked out. He didn't say a word. He didn't say one word. And in the book, subsequently, he debates with himself, was it the right thing or not the right thing? Should he have forgiven him, knowing that he's going to die anyway? Or was it the right thing? But there lies a question. What do we do when someone hurts us so bad on purpose?
It's $1 million question.
Well, that's what we're here tonight, right?
But that's beyond bad, right?
Huh?
That's not bad. Right?
That's
trying,
right.
Trying to kill your kids is not bad, right? It's beyond bad.
Yeah. Okay. In order to really understand this, I'm going to ask you a hard question. It is a hard question. We do this all the time, in our minds. We often make very quick processes in our mind which we don't even pay attention to. Which one do you think is harder? Asking for forgiveness or granting forgiveness?
Asking for forgiveness.
I want you to think and why.
Granting.
Granting forgiveness,
Somebody
I
who
would
hurt
say.
you, can you forgive them? Hold on.
Oh, I can ask him because he has to just.
Good evening. So which one is harder? Asking or granting?
Granting.
Why?
Because the one who asks, you don't know if really means it, if he really going to change.
But do
They
you mean
ask
it if you
just to
grant
get
it?
rid of the sin, and they continue to do what they did.
And what if perhaps you knew that they meant it,
You knew that they meant it.
which is
See,
harder?
It's harder to
Forgiving.
forgive
Still
sometimes
forgiving.
because there's so much of the pain that you've dealt with and it's been going on and it's been hurting you, hurting other people, let's say, or the pain that they've given you has been difficult to forgive.
Right. So
I think asking for forgiveness is
why do you think?
because the person has to realize first that he obviously hurt somebody, and to really understand that his action caused somebody's pain who maybe didn't deserve that pain.
Yeah, so it's a process.
It's a process, yeah.
So let's look at it. In asking for forgiveness, what's required?
And just say to the knowing.
We're going to actually go into the process of forgiveness and how to do this correctly and what's the authentic apology. But beforehand, what is the ultimate element in our character that is necessary in order to really and truthfully ask for forgiveness?
Remorse.
To have remorse.
Humility.
Humility.
Humility. Where does hurting other people come from?
Animal.
Arrogance.
Our ego.
There you go.
Our ego. Ourselves. When we occupy space within ourselves, which desensitizes us for someone else, to the extent that we are not afraid to say, do, or behave in such a way that might, God forbid, hurt them. Now, we might not consciously want to hurt them, we might not purposely want to hurt them, but the behavior, the lack of sensitivity in itself, produces a callousness to the other person. Indeed, in 1898, the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe had a Farbrengen, and in the Farbrengen, he instructed one of his Hasidim to say L'chaim. And the Chassid started looking for a clean cup. When the Rebbe saw this, he immediately said a very famous discourse, Hechalzu, it's in English, Ana Havat Yisrael. And later he explained, where does animosity towards each other come from? It begins when I am too occupied with myself and I'm insensitive to you. When you start looking for a cleaner cup, means there's a division between us, means I'm already holding myself better than you. Now people are going to say aesthetic and germs, but in truth, when brothers are sitting together and families are sitting together, we're all one. Asking for forgiveness requires you to humble yourself. Otherwise, it's not a forgiveness. It's not an apology. And we're going to see how it manifests. And I can tell you for myself today. I was going to Everfresh, and it was the parking situation. Everybody has to go before Yom Kippur. Everybody has to go there. Who's his fault? It's Sukkot and everything. You have to prepare for Sukkot and Yom Kippur all in one shot. And one car cut me off, another car. So I said, you know what? I see a little pathway. Me being the New York driver I am, I cut right through, find a parking spot, and parked. As I came out, I was confronted by two women. Two. Jewish. First, they're Jewish women, which makes it that much tougher. But they were right. They said, you know, it's not nice what you did. It's not nice what you did. You cut us off. And I said, yeah, but you know, somebody else cut me off. And I said, but you know, there's a courtesy. I thought to myself, you know what? They're right. I was callous. I was insensitive. All the excuses I made were just that, excuses. How could I hurt someone else? So, of course, I asked her to forgive me. And Baruch Hashem, it wasn't bad. I didn't run a puppy or anything. But humility requires us, for asking for forgiveness requires us to really look into the source, to the origin, which is ego. What about granting forgiveness? What about granting forgiveness? Granting forgiveness is just as difficult. We spoke about this many times. In this world, everything occupies time and space. Everything. This table occupies time and space. This plate, everything occupies time and space. Including our thoughts and our emotions. They too occupy time and space. We can't think two thoughts in one time. We can't feel two emotions in one time. We could love and hate someone, but we can't do it at the same moment. I could love you for one reason and not like you for another reason altogether. But I can't feel it at the same time, otherwise I'm not well. Then there is the obvious question, we discussed this many times. Why is this table here right now? Why is this space being occupied? What is it doing here? Why is it here? Is there a purpose to it? There's not purpose to it. Emotions also occupy time and space, including toxic emotions. painful emotions, when someone hurts us, they occupy the space of our consciousness. In order to grant forgiveness, we need to evacuate that place in order to let something else in. And until we don't evacuate that pain and that hurt and grant forgiveness, that place is like one of those hotels. What is that called? What did they say when they're fully occupied? What I said?
No vacancy.
No vacancy. No vacancy. I can't take anything else from you right now. I can't handle anything else from you right now. I'm not capable of processing anything else because my space is occupied. Specifically with that which we learned last time, that our minds technically don't understand time. Our brains don't understand time. Time is something that we learn. That, it's a talent that we acquire in order to be able to understand. I need to be at a certain place at a certain time and appointments. But my brain essentially doesn't understand time. So if something hurt, if I was hurt, if someone hurt me, even 90 years ago, and I didn't let go of that, I didn't let go of that old suit, it's occupied. That place is occupied. Until I don't work through it, until I don't forgive, until I don't let go of it, I can't move onwards. It's like as we spoke about it several months ago, like a CD, a DVD. You make a scratch, every time it's going to come there, poof, jump or slow down. Our minds don't understand time. So if somebody hurt us and we're still holding on to it, it's just as fresh today as the minute it occurred. Now we're able to disguise it, we're able to distract ourselves from it, but it's there. And as soon as someone will press on it, we'll jump just like the second it happened.
But don't you think certain things is just unforgivable, unforgettable, and you just learn to live with them? Not that it's the right thing to do, but there's certain things.
Why is it not?
Yeah, so we're going to look into it. We're going to look into that. So now the question is, which one is harder? Granting forgiveness or asking for forgiveness?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Does somebody need to ask you for forgiveness in order for you to just forgive them? Does that have to happen? You could just forgive someone.
Hold on to that though for a few minutes. But does this make sense? Does this make sense?
It makes sense all in the books.
It makes sense only in the books. When we say tshuva, tefillah, tzedakah, tshuva means to reclaim ourselves, we spoke about before, to recollaborate ourselves, to reorient ourselves, to go back to ourselves. What's the next? Tefillah. Tefillah means connection. When we're able to connect to this, to Torah, to the Torah perception, and be able to see, unfortunately, our minds, if we're not learning Torah on a daily basis, become skewered. We start creating orientations based on just what we learn from the streets, from the world. We have to be able to look at everything from the lens of truth, not from facts. Said many times, all facts are true, but don't necessarily represent the truth. If we're constantly just creating perceptions based on fact rather than truth, we disorient very quickly. So yeah, it's in the books, but the more we learn, the more we become one with it, the more it starts. What it says, you should place my words upon your hearts. Why not in your heart? Why didn't it say you should place my words in your heart? Because to really affect your emotions is very hard. It's very difficult. It's very labor intensive. But when you put it on top of you, or if you constantly learn from time to time, God does grant you an open heart, and then it's like a seed that goes in and germinates The more we learn, the more we orient ourselves, it seeps, and with Hashem's help, with davening and learning and so on and so forth. Okay. Two more stories and then we get into the nitty gritty.
Is everybody hot? I'm sure we turn.
I'm totally fine. You know me. It could be 100 degrees, I'm usually fine. So
Everything is funny.
Okay.
the Gemara tells us a very interesting story about Elazar ben Reb Shimon, very prominent Tana, son of his father Shimon Bar Yochai. He was traveling from Migdal Oz. He was traveling once. He was coming back to his town, and he sees a man who happened to be very, as Rabbi Shimon called him, ugly. So the man stops Rabbi Elazar. The man stops Rabbi Elazar and says, Rabbi Elazar, Shalom Aleichem. Rabbi Elazar says to him, is everyone in your town that ugly?
That's not nice.
And the man turns to him and says, if you have any complaints, complain to my maker. I can make myself this way. Complain to my maker. But the man became very notably upset. So Rabbi Elazar got off his horse, and asked him for forgiveness. And he says, no, I'm not going to forgive you. You should know better. The woman told me today, she helped me today. She said, a person who looks like you should know better. She got me. She really got me. And so he followed him the entire course. Rabbi Elazar followed him the entire course he reached back into his own village, where all of his students were awaiting their Rebbe's arrival. And in front of him was this man, and the man sees all these people waiting for Rabbi Elazar. He says, what are you waiting for? He says, our Rebbe. He says, this is your Rebbe? If this is your Rebbe, you shouldn't have these kind of people around. He says, why? What happened? He said, you know what he said? He apologized, man. Rabbi Elazar apologized over and over and over, but he didn't forgive him. So the people, his students said, look, forgive him. And he said, okay, if he doesn't do it again. The Rebbe explains that indeed Rabbi Elazar didn't just, and in fact the Gemara records this, it's not just by the way he wanted to insult him. He saw that his insides were empty and devoid and downright ugly because he was disconnected from his maker. So when Elazar told him, you're ugly, for the very first time, the guy starts thinking, hey, I have a maker, speak to him. Not me, I didn't make myself. Goal achieved. He achieved his goal. But at what price? He insulted him. He hurt his feeling. Take over here.